Hey everyone, so I wanted to take a minute and talk about the seventh studio album by the Danish band Causa Sui. I believe that's how you pronounce it. This album marks their seventh studio album, which came out, I believe, near the end of June, which I kind of missed out on listening to of it. But this is a instrumental kind of psychedelic garage rock jam band group, as I said, from Denmark of it, which this album is, I believe, it has four songs on it, but the final song, which is the kicker, is 24 minutes long. The first song is around like 7 minutes of it. Second song is pretty simple, 4, and then third song 9 minutes, and then, as I said, the 24-minute fourth song. It's all instrumental, and this album does kind of remind me of that old aspect of like the 60s, like Pink Floyd, and a little bit of the early 70s, where they had like less songs of it, but they had like long songs of it. The big example I would say would be like Adam Hart, Mother, which was basically, I think it was all instrumental on that album, which I always thought was interesting of it, which I thought would be kind of an interesting album to listen to. I haven't really listened to Causa Sui, any of their previous albums, but it sounded interesting. I saw it on Rate Your Music when it had come out, and I wrote it down as like an album to listen to, and I just now got around to listening to it, and I wanted to talk about it, because I do have some thoughts about it. To start right off the bat, we had the first song, Sorcerer's Disciple, which I personally, I liked it. I thought the instrumentation with the guitar and bass was very, like, groovy. It was gliding through sand. It also just like it's gonna sound weird, but it felt like what like the soundtrack to like this transformation scene. Like someone is like evolving or it's transforming into a thing as like the desert sand glides through. It's a very cool song. It feels like the only downside I would say to it is at points it feels like it's building up to something, but it doesn't. It never gets there. It doesn't have this like crescendo or thing. It feels like it's constantly building up. Is my only issue with it, but I did overall like it. And I did just really liked the speedy guitar that they get near like the end of it, or like the third part of the song, which is just like gliding up and down, up and down. It's very good. And then you have the second song, Dust Dwellers, which I think this one or the next one might be my favorite ones. But it has this very like floating and bubbly like bass throughout it that just kind of has good ways of fitting into the grooves of it, of being like quiet but still noticeable if you're looking for it at parts, and then kind of very noticeable at certain points of it, but never feels like it's upstaging everything else. The instrumentation, it just feels like it always fits in at the right moments, which I always appreciate. As a bass fan, I feel like that's something that can be very hard to do, and I feel like they did really good on this song of it. And it's definitely this slower kind of down-tempo song, which feels like it's rising up of it, and does actually have a crescendo on it, which works very well for, a title song, Dusk Dwellers of it, like the rising sun of it. I generally liked it. I had a lot of positive to say about that. And then we get to the third song, which is called The Spot, which is, around 9 minutes of it, which is a bit quieter and slower with, like, the instruments of it, before it just kind of speeds up and gets louder at points, and then going back down. So it is very much, like, kind of a roller coaster at points of it. I did like the song. I thought the instrumentation on the guitar, like, they had, like, these, like, finger picking that the guitar starts doing at points, which I thought was very good. That was around the time when it was getting, like, speeding up and louder. So overall, I thought that sounded really good. The only downside is, like, I don't know, I just felt like it was kind of going somewhere. It was slightly longer than you would kind of want for a song like that, but I thought it did very well on, and I have mostly positive to say about that. And then we get to the final song, which was probably the hardest one for me to listen to, Visions of New Horizons, which is 24 minutes, as I said. Now, I don't have any issue with listening to long songs. Now, I know people say, like, 9 minutes for a song is long, which, yes, it can be, 100%. But so can, like, 5 minutes. 5 minutes can be long. 24 minutes is very difficult to, in my opinion, make work at points of it, which even categorized by, like, Pink Floyd. Do they have songs that go past 20 minutes? Yes, I generally think for a good amount of like the Adam Hart Mother, I feel like that one is very well done and very underrated in that. Echoes, which is probably my second favorite, Pink Floyd, like of those long songs, and then you had Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which to be fair does get split up into acts for that, so I think it can be done well. It is incredibly difficult to do, and I think it can be very hard. I don't think that this is necessarily a bad song, but I also don't think it's a great song. I think it's the worst song on the album because I kind of liked this aspect of it though. Before I even start, it felt like it was taking small aspects from or some inspiration from the three previous tracks, which I thought was cool. Kind of connected it all together of like this build up, so you got familiar with it before they then gave you the big, very like impactful 24-minute song. Downside is I don't think any of like the kind of parts that they borrowed from the other three songs does this song do better than those other three. And I that's just generally how I felt about it. The transitions as well, which it kind of just fades out and then comes back in for the next part of it, and it's kind of like trying to think how that. It's just kind of like daunting whenever it just happens because you're just like, oh, okay, that part's over. You just know what's happening, and it gets to the next part, and it just kind of like cuts it off for a minute before coming back, which it's just not. It wasn't the best for that. So I overall wasn't really the biggest fan of this song. I didn't think it was horrible. I think for a 24-minute song, the fact that they still managed to make it, what they had in there of it work pretty well is commendable. It is impressive. It is not something I think a lot of bands would have the cohesion to do. And so overall, even though it wasn't really for me, and I probably won't be listening to it outside of, context of listening to this album and then reviewing it, maybe once in a blue moon, maybe in a couple of years, of like, oh yeah, let's re-listen to this album when I'm like looking back at stuff. I might listen to this, get the kind of full effect, because I do like the concept of taking the aspects from the other songs on it, so that might happen, but I just can't see myself listening to that outside of the context of like right now. But with that being said, I generally liked this album. I did some of the parts of it. They kind of made a bit repetitive with instrumentation, but it worked very well when they did it. So you can't really fault that, or it's not really a negative in that sense. I did really like it. Had this very like deserty, like at nighttime kind of feel to it. Very enjoyable, very impressive how all the instruments work together, because that's always the hard part, is combining them, making them weave and work and intertwine each other, fit into the grooves. Overall, very good. But that is why I'm feeling like giving this album, I'm going to give it a 7. I feel like a 7 is a good rating for it. I think they overall did very good on it. The final song on it is the weak point of the album, sadly, but I think they overall still did good with it, and I feel like a 7 is a good rating to give. But anyways, that's the review. That's how I felt about it. If you've listened to the album, let me know what you think. If you listen to any of the previous albums, let me know what you think about those. But that's gonna be it for me. Bye.